I am Renee Boertje, and in today's webcast, we welcome our partner Leadfabric and our customer Telenet, who share learnings from moving to an agile organization on putting the customer first and how not only data but culture within the organization is key to achieve success. But first, while we have people joining, some housekeeping rules to make this 100% live webinar the best for you. This webinar is expected to end at 10:45. If you have any thoughts, please feel free to share them in the chat box. For any questions, I advise you to put them in the Q&A box, and we will try to answer all of them at the end of the webcast. Let me introduce you to today's presenters. We have Koen de Witte, Managing Director at Leadfabric, helping align B2B marketing acts with buyer needs, running Europe's most versatile MarTech consulting firm. Second, we have Lieven Foubert, Director Data and Insights at Telenet Business, anchoring the data democratization within Telenet Business. Also joining from Telenet, we have Princen, Digital Transformation Manager, enabling Telenet to become customer-centric by using the power of data. And finally, we have my colleague Max Biedermann, Marketing Automation Specialist at Adobe. So let's get started. I want to give the floor to my colleague Max Biedermann, and I hope you'll enjoy this webcast.
I hope you can all see my screen. So thank you very much. Today, it's all going to be about Marketo Engage, what it is and why it works. But before we go into further details, I want to let you know more about what are the actual differences that we usually see before we go directly into what Marketo Engage is. So here it's really important, first of all, to define how the marketing alignment works within the purchasing process. So many times when you look at complexity or the price of specific products, there are different spectrums where we find each other. So it could be a price that has a relatively low complexity, a relatively low price, and other products that have a high complexity, let's say maybe specific engines or more complex projects from the manufacturing, high-tech manufacturing area, they will require a lot more information until you would actually find a specific, the solution that might fill your needs. Then also, it depends often on the purchasing time, whether something is more impulsive on the one side, or whether a product is more of a considered purchase. So this meaning multiple stakeholders might be involved, and the time until a decision is actually being made can take months or even years until we actually come to a specific purchasing process and decision that is being made. Then the business model also plays a big role. So you've got indirect business models where you've got your maybe e-commerce shops and everything is done without a salesperson in particular. And then on the other spectrum, we see that there are direct sales channels where someone from within the sales team at BDR might be involved in order to then transform a lead into an actual purchase of the product and therefore convert. And then lastly, we can also define on the one side the marketing area on the purchasing product. So whether you're working more in transactional marketing or whether you're working more within the lead generation or pipeline marketing. And when we speak about Marketo Engage, we would find us more on the right side of the spectrum. We've got a longer time where you need to consider which kinds of products you would purchase, and also oftentimes salespeople that are involved within driving those leads along the funnel. Then we also look at the B2B buying process within Marketo, which oftentimes, at least based on research, it takes up to 7 months. And within those 7 months, or it could be longer or less, depending on your business, you touch multiple people within an organization. And the more people you touch, the more difficult it will be to keep track of who you've interacted with and where they might be within the sales process. And what we found actually is that usually the entire buying process goes a lot further than the simple sales process. So people tend to look at products a lot earlier. So up to 17 months until a purchase is actually made, we see that people start to explore what are the options of the products that you might be selling. And within those organizations that you are trying to reach, it could sometimes be up to 20 to 30 different stakeholders within a single company that you might want to reach. Yeah? And this obviously adds a lot more complexity to the entire process. And this is where Marketo Engage comes into play, where we would have a variety of different features and functions that will allow you to actually support this B2B buying process. So on the one side, it allows you to have nonlinear journeys with more channels that you could utilize on every channel that your individual customers might be using. Then it's also really important, and I'm just taking a quick look at our polls and see how the results are currently looking like. And I see at the moment there is a bit of an even split between marketing people and some of the leadership and IT people in the room. So what Marketo actually allows you to do is that it will give you more information about what marketing is doing to salespeople and vice versa. So it's really about having marketing and sales working together to collaborate better with each other. Then it will also allow you to keep track throughout the buying process where individual stakeholders within the business that you want to sell to would want to buy something from. And then you could support this complex business models. So where does Marketo Engage actually support you here? So on the one side, it allows you to orchestrate those buyer journeys along the funnel. So what we see here is that on the one side, you've got the ability to build engagement programs that will help you to nurture your leads over time to actually make them sales ready and then hand them over to sales so you can only find which are the hottest leads that your sales can then quickly follow up on, and you'll always be on top of the data that you have collected over those individual leads over time. And salespeople are also in the lead of knowing what sort of interactions have happened in the past with the individual leads, which could be, has someone recently downloaded a white paper? Has he watched or looked at a specific product on the website? And so on and so forth. And then it's also about personalization. So personalization will allow you to have more relevant conversation with your individual leads or prospects in order to get them convert quicker. And within Marketo Engage, we've got the ability to utilize predictive content, such as will allow you to suggest the best content possible on the website or within an email. Also, we have got utilization of A/B testing to constantly improve which sort of marketing campaigns are working very well. And then obviously playing those out through every channel that you will be using. So this could be your email channel, mobile channel, on the website. So really being able to reach your customers where they actually would want to be reached. And on top of that, also execute not only lead-based strategies, but also looking at what is happening from an account perspective. So Marketo gives you the ability to look at your marketing from an account-based perspective, thinking at the broader picture where you don't look at individual leads, but actually targeting accounts as a whole. And lastly, you can prove and improve the impact of your marketing campaigns, which is something that marketers always struggle. So we've got solutions in place which allow you to define the marketing attribution that the single campaigns that you're running are actually having on the overall revenue that you're driving or on the sales pipeline that you're generating from all of your marketing efforts. So with that being said, I would now hand over to Koen de Witte, Managing Director of Leadfabric, to tell us more about how they've implemented B2B in an agile world. Thank you.
Thank you, Max, and good morning, everyone. And before I jump in, maybe Renee, can I ask you to maybe share the next poll question we have for our audience here? Max just explained the differences between B2B and B2C. I'll actually will hone in on that, but I'd like to kind of understand who we have today joining the call. So we're giving you 4 options. Either you're on B2C and dealing with fast-moving consumer goods and relying on sales channels like retail to fulfill demand, or you are, like just Max explained, dealing with more considered purchase, still in B2C. Think about cars and capital goods investments. And then you can be in B2B, transactional. Let's say office supplies, or you can actually be selling very complex solutions, and then we call it complex sales. So I'd love to kind of understand where you guys are operating in. And whilst we are collecting the results, we will, I might be sharing what you can expect in the next 15 minutes. So I'm going to take it a little bit further than Max did on what the difference is between B2C and B2B, and then zoom in a little bit on how marketing automation actually can help both activities, but that you probably will have to make different technology selections. And then once you've made those selections, what is then the implementation paths you could walk on? And if there's one thing I would love to have you take away after the session, it is to understand that maybe B2B and B2C have similar traits, but there are some distinct differences as well. And it's especially when we talk about campaign and campaign management. So I'll try to dive in a little bit deeper into what the differences really are and to what extent that impacts the usage of marketing automation technology and implementation. So let's see who we have here. So we have kind of a pretty equal spread across the four different choices we gave you. So we do have more than half of the audience joining us today that are active in B2C. So that's why I thought it would make sense to go a little bit deeper into highlighting the differences between both markets. So without further ado, let me switch slides here and go into presentation mode. So if we talk about B2C and B2B, and so Max gave us lots of different options here. As you bring it back to 2 dimensions, we kind of tend to look at it from 5 different tenets. So B2C, we're targeting usually a much larger audience compared to B2B, where we're more zooming into smaller niches. The purchase process is, as Max explained, usually often executed by one singular person, whereas in B2B, we're dealing with a buying committee. Lots of people are involved in the decision-making process. And then the buying process is in B2C rather simple. It's a single step, it's transactional. And in B2B, you have people from the buying committee showing up at some point in the buyer's journey and then leaving again, and then other people take the decision. So you have a pretty complex, often, process that you need to manage. And that is if you look at it from the perspective of the buyer. And obviously, you also kind of need to manage the process. So there is the viewpoint that you have on the buyer process as well, which we call a sales cycle, which is in B2C typically short, and in B2B often very long, and with extra complexity because of the cost of sale. So you have 2 divisions here helping each other close deals, and we will have to make sure that we find out which role is to be played by which division and when the handover needs to occur. And here's a point of attention. It's not that every single deal that will close will be the result of marketing sourced activity. Sales will still be very importantly chasing their own opportunities. So we not only have to make sure when is marketing handing over the deals, marketing is sourcing to sales, but once it's handed over to sales, how can marketing support opportunities that either are the result of marketing handing them over or sales sourcing them themselves. So there's a complexity here with lots of new KPIs that join the world, like marketing sourced leads and marketing influence leads, things that you don't have in B2C. And then lastly, sales drivers. So in B2C, you're aiming for repeat business. And so you need to kind of create a proximity between you and the buyer and your brand equity. And then you hope to can generate repeated sales activity, which of course is also important in B2B. You do hope that after a first initial sale, you can close more deals and you can upsell and cross-sell. But before you even get there, it's super important that you can close that first deal. And as we just explained, that goes through long cycles, sometimes with lots of different stakeholders popping up. And so you need to make sure that you offer them the right content at each of the various stages in the buyer's journey. And that requires you to make sure that you understand which content you need to serve up. And if you do that right, then you can actually steer that conversation in the desired direction, i.e. leading to a close where they buy from you. And in an online world, it's super important that you actually do that right, because if you offer the content online, you have the ability to track consumption. And by tracking consumption, you actually do know what content is working and what content is less working, so that over time you can become more effective. And if you look at the complexity in B2C versus B2B, we can actually summarize it that in B2C, the complexity is around orchestrating the audience and reaching the audience in the target market, and making sure that they create proximity, if you create proximity with your audience so that they keep repeating purchases. Whereas in B2B, the complexity is a little bit more scattered across all the 5 tenets I just explained, and you not only need to make sure that you're really good at connecting with your audience, but once you're connected with the audience, you will have to make sure that you have all these other processes under control with regards to, for example, lead management, handing over leads from marketing to sales. So it's different. So we cannot say it's B2B is a simplified version of B2C or vice versa. It's just different. And we can actually make it really clear with this. You can probably sell a lot of skincare products to your audience in B2C with campaigns that are using emotion, like statements like "because you're worth it." But I doubt it that you will sell a lot of very complex accounting software to accountants and IT teams in a B2B context by using slogans that your audience is worth it, what you're selling to them. You will have to do a little bit more than just marketing slogans and campaign. And so that's the big difference. So what a campaign really is in B2B is of a different order of magnitude. I will zoom in a little bit in a couple of slides what that really is, that difference. But if you look at it from a technology perspective, if you want to orchestrate journeys in a B2C transactional context, you actually can do what the Adobe campaign here is saying. You can actually try to manage the entire journey on a single screen, because the journey is singular and is easier to map. The complexity here is because you're dealing with probably a lot of different members in your audience, and you're spending a lot of marketing euros. So the complexity here is to make sure that you've spent your money wisely. And so analytics is going to play a pretty important role here. In B2B, the complexity lies in different areas. And so often when we talk about marketing automation, we see people refer to marketing automation as in context of a tool. And a tool is something you use to do something how to do, but you just want to do it more efficiently and relying on technology to get you there. So we kind of tend to think that if you want to think about marketing automation in a B2B context, you cannot really start from a tool perspective. You need to really think from a platform perspective, meaning you bring all the data into one place, you build audience segments, you have a system listen to how profiles change, so information of a profile, the data that you've gathered about a certain contact, how that changes over time, and that you have the system listen to that, and then have the system decide to which segments a certain member is getting assigned to, and that is because you need to not only manage people going through a buyer's journey, but you also need to support the conversations to make decisions on when to hand it over. So the platform allows you to build a strategy and then make the best choice on where to go and how to get there with the data at hand, which is a little bit more ambitious than just using a tool to make you do things. And here's a gentleman. For those that are active in the B2B industry, you might recognize the name. Serious Decisions is an industry analyst. It has been acquired last year by Forrester Research, and They have been doing a lot of research on how B2B marketing process needs to be set up in organizations. And so if you hear terminology like MQLs or ABM, actually most of that terminology comes from these guys. And attending many of their conferences, Tony, who was their chief strategy officer, always went on stage by making this claim that if you do a campaign, an email campaign, which is sending out an email, or a webinar campaign like what we're doing today, don't call it a campaign, because that's B2C language. It's reaching out to an audience, but a campaign in B2B is a little bit more complex. And so you need to manage a lot of different journeys and interactions and flows with your audience and also internally. So there's three kind of program types that are constituting a campaign. First of all, there is a reputation. And reputation is what we kind of tend to know under the name branding. And in that camp, you take your contacts through influencer marketing programs, you do awareness advertising campaigns, you invite them to events just like today, and you keep the engine running. You keep a certain level of communication existing, which we call long-term nurturing. And then once they are a customer, you hope that they help you kind of convince prospects. That's just all kinds of journeys that take place in the reputation side of the business. But you actually also need to couple your audience with your offering, and so you will have to come up with programs that make people come to you whilst they're going through their buyer's journey. So there's the inbound and outbound campaigns. You need to qualify these members and then make decisions on, as long as they're not qualified, we're going to nurture them before we hand them over to sales. And once they're in sales hands, either because marketing created it, as I just mentioned, or sales created the opportunity themselves, you will have to support as a marketer the pipeline and the opportunity that came out of that initial program. And so here you're looking at nurturing programs that are trying to accelerate opportunities in your CRM system, or even opportunities that are stuck, try to kind of revive them. And you have onboarding programs. So you can see campaign here is a little bit more complex than a one journey, and the ambition of trying to kind of map the entire journey in one screen, like campaign management software does, is not really that good of an approach, because then you end up, and this actually is an example of a B2B marketing automation platform that is trying to do it like B2C journeys with if-then logic, and then you get the spaghetti like you're watching on the screen, which is great. You can set up all those journeys with this kind of logic, but you will end up pretty soon with a cluster of flows that only the people that created them will understand. And what happens in marketing organizations is that people move on, and so new people come in and inherit what has been built previously by other people, and then they see something like this, and then they can do two things. They just delete everything and they start over again, which kind of is detrimental to the value creation in marketing and sales. Or they just don't touch it, and they run with the adage of, if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But in doing so, you're not even optimizing it, and so you're also leaving money on the table. So here's where Marketo, and Max was talking about it, comes in, Marketo Engage, because it doesn't force you to think like an IT technician with if-then logic. It actually maps really easily to how buyer's journeys actually are created and are modeled. So you have stages in the buyer's journey. You have people in an early stage that are looking for information about their problem. You have the middle stage of a buyer's journey, where people are trying to kind of understand what the options they have to fix the problem. And in late stage, it's okay, they know what options they have made a choice that they need a certain solution. Now they need to pick the right vendor. So what we then typically advise customers to do, and that's where the complexity comes from, is how do you decide where people enter a certain stream? So you have your marketing search campaigns enter an early stage or a mid stage or a late stage, and then you decide how to treat people with content, and that's sitting in each of the streams. And then you have the decisions on how to transition people from one stream to the other. And in the meantime, you hope that you create this connection with the buyer and the buyer committee, that they keep coming back, even as a result of their initiative. They're coming back to your website, not even a result of you nurturing them with an email, because you've built that proximity with your audience. So you score that interaction. And if you then reach a certain score, then That's what's called disposition. You make an agreement with sales that you hand over the conversation to sales. That is what is B2B marketing automation, which is complexity. You don't have to apply it in a B2C environment. So if you talk about implementation options, you have you have to make a difference between the environment you're working in. If you're working in SME, MKB, or KMO or PME, you can probably assume that you can get everybody around the table. You can count on some level of alignment between sales and marketing. So the advice we give is to go with what we call typically a rapid deployment. That is predefined deployment process with some user training, set everything up. But if you go to enterprise, then relying on predefined implementation process is dangerous, because you enter an environment where different departments have different needs and they all need to be served. So there are different goals you need to kind of align to. There's legal complexity. There is all kinds of governance requirements around testing and introducing new technology in your company. So a predefined implementation method is not really the right thing to do. And so you probably have to go with a waterfall type of approach, where you first do a requirements analysis, and then you set up an MVP, and from there you try to kind of fine tune it and right size it to your organization. That's typically how enterprise software is rolled out in general. But the one thing though that we're dealing with, and that something often is forgotten and actually results into marketing automation in B2B not delivering on its full promise, that is because we are not taking into account too much are the people. And I'm not talking about the people we're trying to sell to. I'm talking about our own people, the people that need to run the software and operate it. They have a certain way of doing things that they've learned over the years. And technology is growing quite rapidly and allowing us to do a lot of stuff, but our ability for the teams to absorb that new way of working that technology enables you to do is not growing as fast. And so you start dealing with a gap between what technology enables you to do and your own internal capabilities. So that is something we need to deal with. And that is what Telenet also saw. Lieven is going to take us through a story about how you can start adopting new methods of introducing change into an organization by adopting agile planning methodology. That's exactly what we've done at Telenet to give you the opportunity to go to market much quicker with an implementation of marketing automation. This is different than what you're looking at the screen, or where you first go into a planning phase, then you do requirements analysis, then you do deployment, and only after that you go live, and then you hope you evolve into a direction over time that gets you in the best of class category, where you're really optimizing your revenue in B2B. That takes time. You need to have all the stakeholders aligned. It's dangerous because you can get stuck in an over technology focused execution model. So there are other ways to approach it, and that is what Lieven is going to explain is how do you apply Agile to kind of start from a business requirement and immediately go live, and then make incremental steps towards that future. The only thing that I would like to add here, if you're considering applying Agile implementation methodology, is that you bring somebody in the Scrum and the Epic teams that actually has that long view perspective on how you need to set up a system so that it's future proof. That's maybe the only caveat I would add if you go for Agile. It's good to focus on the here and now and the business needs, but you need to have somebody who knows how a system like this can be set up in the future, so that you don't limit yourself by making too slow choices, limited choices in the beginning. But with that, I think that's a good segue into Lieven's part, where he will take us in a little bit more detail on what Telenet has really done. But before we go there, maybe a good idea is to also, again, ask the audience to what extent they're actually applying already today Agile methodologies in their business. People coming in, not that many. Some of you seem to be hesitating where you are, but yeah, we have some people saying they're not aware. So it's a little bit across the board. So we have people that actually are using it. We have a couple of participants that are doing specifically in marketing, which is great. And some of you are planning. So it's a little bit across the board, which is what I think we could have expected. So maybe it's a good idea now to zoom in a little bit on how Agile actually can help you with introduction of IT that supports the business needs of a marketing department. So Lieven, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Koen. So in Telenet, in fact, our story started many years ago with a conviction to go for customer centricity. So we are all convinced at Telenet that putting the customer first is the right thing to do. And putting those customers first will be a no regrets move, and that it will be a prerequisite for success. But also this means putting the customer first, that it is impossible to do so without solid data capabilities. We really have to understand our customer, and to understand our customer, we have to start capturing data and put those data that we capture into words, really actionable insights, and those actionable insights we have to put into action. And so we, at Telenet, we decided to treat data as a core capability to generate business value for our customers. We aim for data as a driver next to process, people, and technology. So information should become the driver of our business. And then we come to the question, how do we organize ourselves on it? And then you have the typically debate, the never-ending debate between the data control at the central level at IT or autonomy for decentralized business teams. At Telenet, we are convinced to focus on data capabilities such as marketing automation for the dedicated and decentralized business teams. Why we do so? Well, first of all, because those decentralized business teams do really understand the business, because they work all the time together with all different business stakeholders. Secondly, those teams will really focus on embedding those data capabilities in their daily way of working, and also they will have a clear focus on delivering immediately business value. But so when you are at the start of such a journey at the decentralized team, it is key to choose the right partner in it. And for me, it was much more than just setting up an email campaign or just a customer journey. For me, it was about changing our approach and becoming an insights-driven company. And so what I really needed was an expert party who understood the bigger picture and the challenges I was facing. So I did count on this party to support in setting up the strategic roadmap, because we want to go to more touch points towards an omni-channel strategy. We wanted to focus on the specific customer preferences, but also this party should support me in evangelizing towards the senior management, in installing all this kind of data capabilities within the whole organization, also helping me in participating in discussions with our TIO colleagues on platform setup, on integrations, and of course, as well to help at the starting point, which is starting with an email campaign and customer journeys. And that's the reason why at Telenet, why I've chosen to work together with Koen, and together with the whole Leadfabric team, we really made a great journey. Because you have to understand that in a big company in general, you don't start from an empty page. There are already some technologies in place. And of course, at IT side, there is as well a technology roadmap. But from business side, on the other hand, we really want to create immediately business value. And that's a kind of a balance that you have to find. But one thing is sure, those centralized teams and decentralized teams, they have to work together because they have a joint goal. And our joint goal at Telenet is very clear: to create business value for our customers. And at Telenet, they were convinced that giving the autonomy and the empowerment of these decentralized teams was the good step further. And so they went along the way with it, and they went one step further, and Telenet decided to become a complete agile organization. So what means it's really for Telenet a next step in their culture. And the reason to do so, that's as I started my presentation with, was just to ensure this customer centricity. So the main goal of Telenet was breaking down the silos, becoming more efficient, and respond better and faster to the changing needs of our customers. And so we organize ourselves really fully around our customer. So the setup is really with one focus, is our customer. And if we take a look how we do it from a data point of view, we see that part of our data people will work centrally, where they will focus on the foundation layers, such as, for example, platform and architecture. And part of the data people are present within the business tribes. And there it is those teams who have the concrete initiatives to generate business value for our customers. As you see, for me, this is really the agile mindset. It's always starting, as Koen told already, from an MVP, a minimum viable product, with a focus on business value. Further on, we go on with continuous, we in general always start with a proof of concept, with a focus on the technology, and then further on, if this is working, we move on with strengthening the processes, integrating the processes, and focusing on creating ambassadors. And then in a latest phase is the full deployment, with a really important part there, the people aspect, really focusing on the people, with a huge effort in data literacy, and really putting those data capabilities within the business. And this is what we call at Telenet the operational readiness part. So now I hand over to my colleague Steven, who will go more concrete on our journey we did together with Leadfabric. So Steven.
Thank you, Lieven. So you maybe go to the next slide. We launched Marketo in July 2018, and it's a bit what Koen said, and Lieven as well. Maybe go back one slide, Lieven. We continuously improved our way of working and impact. And if you look today where we are, and there are three things that I would like to explain a bit more in detail, looking at analytics and modeling. In the past, we worked with inside-out propensity models, and we enriched them with an outside-in scoring model. We looked really at what were people doing on our different platforms, and we also had lead scoring and lead nurturing integrated, so we could see who might be interested in buying certain products. And I think it's also said by Max in the beginning, it's key, of course, that you align almost on a very regular basis. We have weekly meetings with sales, and that you align with sales to see, are we giving the right leads to them? Talking about campaign execution, so we are continuously testing and improving, and also launching new campaigns. So to date, we have 10 journeys. So these are always on journeys. And to date, we have 10 journeys live. On top of that, and I think Lieven mentioned already, the needs that we have in data, I try to capture as much as possible data as we could, being it through newsletters, events, a bot, and I will come back to that bot example. And that we do, of course, to learn on who's our customer, who's our lead, and what are they dealing with. And about way of working, I think that also has been elaborated. Together with Leadfabric, we did in fact this agile approach, although in the company we didn't have it yet, because it's only recently that we are agile at Telenet, but we were already working in an agile approach before agile was launched. And definitely in the beginning, this was a lot of work and effort to get that evangelized towards everybody. I think it's Peter Drucker who said, like, culture eats strategy for breakfast. We really noticed that, and you really need to have everybody on board knowing what you're doing and why you're doing. If you see, I described shortly what was my goal for 2020. I wanted to engage with an audience on a large scale, and definitely putting that audience in the center, and that's based on behavior, needs, and interest. And very quickly, indeed, it became clear that Marketo was the key tool to make that happen. There's a link behind this image, but we don't have the time maybe, but it's a YouTube video of what Marketo could do in 2017. And when I saw that video, I realized, okay, this is the platform that we need to have. So I'm going to give, about the topics that I mentioned before, I'm going to give some examples. So the first is, how did we engage with our audience? And I'm going to show the first journey that we put live. The second example will be about data points and the bot that we integrated. And the third example is elaborating a bit on our way of working. So showing that first example, if you go to the next slide. So we were able to engage with our audience. There's no surprise there. And this is also a slide that I used internally. This was the first journey that we built, and it was an eye-opener for a lot of people. And I used this guy, Peter. He was the first person that did what we expected that our audience would do. And what did he do? We tried to sell Speed Boost online, and it is for people who aren't happy about the speed of their internet. And I called him because, with a tool like Marketo, you can see who your audience is, and it's not a goal, but I'll come back to that. But what did we see? He was triggered by the communication that we sent to him, but it took him 37 interactions before he actually bought this specific product online. And it was also an eye-opener for a lot of people internally, because, if we reach out via a sales rep, we do one interaction. And here you see that somebody, it's also something that was shown earlier, somebody needs to be inspired by the things that we do. On the end of the day, of course, it is not about one individual. You want to capture behavior of larger groups of your customer, but the platform that Marketo will enable you to do that. And even more important, it's not only about who is doing what you think you expect them to do, it's even more important who is not doing what you expect them to do, and then you need to analyze why are they doing other things, and that's how you can grab an even bigger audience. So if you click a few times, Lieven, these are the mails that we sent to this audience. If you click one more time, if you go back one time, Lieven. So here you see some results of the different mails that we sent, and you see that gradually the open rate enlarges and the click-to-open rate. And if you click one more time, Lieven, then you see also the results that we were able to achieve. So we were able to do a comparison between just sending a bulk mail, a mail to a targeted audience, and a marketing automation campaign. And there you see that the results of the campaign were much larger than that of a bulk mail. Of course, these are small audiences, but like I said, this was our first test. We have since then industrialized this process, and the results have been like that or even bigger. So if you go to the next slide, that's an example of a bot that we integrated. And of course, you might think, but why do you talk about the bot while we're presenting something about Marketo? One of the strengths of Marketo is that in this platform, you can add in a whole bunch of additional technologies. And this specific bot, it's another technology of Drift. It enabled us to see who does what in the bot, but that is also integrated in our Marketo environment, in our Marketo database, in our Marketo scoring. And just to show a bit how successful this bot approach was, then you see that on the left, you see the number of leads that engaged with that bot on one specific page, and you see the 665 that are the opportunities. It's of a whole year. And then you see the number of closed ones. So we have a sales operations team that looks at who is a real opportunity, and then it's up to sales to sell those opportunities. And to date, we have a closing rate of 40%, which is one of the best results that you can imagine. Sales are very happy to receive these leads. And again, like I stated before, it's key that you sit together on a regular basis with sales to see what works, what doesn't work, how can we improve these processes. And we have improved our bot process. Just to give you an indication, so these 268 closed ones, is of an entire year, but the last 3 months, we did more than 120 closed ones. So it shows how continuously improvement helps you to improve your results. This is about the way of working, and this is a mail that we sent while the first Corona lockdown happened. And it was in fact during the weekend, and I still have to thank Koen in fact and his team to be ready to execute on this during the weekend. And you see a bit, I mentioned that on the clock you see on the right. Yeah, we received this on a Sunday, and very quickly we were able to create a mail and send out the mail. And throughout Telenet, there was a lot of positive vibe, because a lot of our customers were very happy to see that we reacted so quickly, engaged with them, because in the mail we also mentioned, listen, we understand that these are difficult times. If you want to postpone your billing, it is all possible. And how were we able to do that, in fact? And if you click one more time, Lieven, you see appear on the left, we have, together with Leadfabric, created the templated approach. So, like you see these different examples, like this, we have 200-300 different types of templates defined, and it's very quickly then for the team to create a very good-looking mail on a very short time frame. And this is again an example on how this platform enables you to do a lot of things that that make you grow instead of being hijacked a bit by your technology. This is a bit where are we today at, and how do we even go further? And if you look at this, we want to move away from stop one-size-fits-all campaigns to always on. You can click Lieven, to always on personalized journeys. And we are going to do that by embracing this agile approach to start small, test quickly, analyze result, and kill or scale. And you do that by learning from all stakeholders to put them together and enrich each other. And then if you go to the last slide, Lieven. What is our goal for 2020? And if you click one more time, then we want to, of course, we still have the goal of 2020 that we want to achieve, but in 2021, we want to have a consistent user experience throughout all touch points. And what does that mean? Now we want to go at even larger scale than we did before. And again, with the technology that we have available, we are able to scale up that technology based upon the needs that we have. So if I have to give some feedback, I think we at Telenet had a very good experience with working with Leadfabric and the technology that we have available. And we want to drive it even further in the future.
Thank you very much, Lieven. And Koen and Lieven, by the way, this is very inspiring to see that this journey you've been on together. So thank you for sharing. We did get a few questions. For the sake of time, I'm gonna look at the ones that we're gonna answer that I think will benefit most people in this session. There was already one question about customer journeys in a screen. Koen already answered that, so anyone that is interested can find that question in the chat pod as well. We got another question, and I think Steven or Lieven, one of you can probably answer this one. You probably already had an email platform before you started working with Marketo. In the phase leading up to agile working, you also mainly use Marketo with email. What differences do you see?
Yeah, right. So we got already an email platform before, but to send out an email, it took really a lot of time because it were all different teams who were involved to send out a campaign. You just had to plan it up front. So this was already, now with going towards Marketo, it was really already empowering our business teams. So frankly told, we could now send out an email by ourselves immediately.
And something that happened naturally was that what you mentioned, Lieven, when people wanted to send out the mail, they looked at both options, and in Marketo we said we can do that tomorrow. It's a bit example that I give by sending that mail on Sunday. We were not able to do it with the other tool that we had available because it was not accessible for our staff. It's just a natural process where people realize, okay, I've got option A that can happen today, or option B where I need to wait a bit longer. then it's easily decided.
Yeah, I
On
can
the other
imagine.
hand, what I really want to tell about it as well, so we have the empowerment of the local people, so much more ownership, but it's also a risk, because you have also to look, and it's also what we told during the presentation, on the integration aspect, because you don't want that you send out a mail to someone who just went the day before towards the shop or did an opt-out. So it's also this integration part, and the Marketo platform gives a lot of integration possibilities, but it's also really something that we can forget also from a data point of view. The solution should really become integrated to avoid, because giving more ownership to the business is the right thing to do, but on the other hand, you really have to see the bigger picture and avoid, it brings some risk with it as well. So that's something that I really want to emphasize as well. And of course, giving more agile, going more towards agile. The advantage is in agile you have really multidisciplinary teams, and you're really more empowering the local teams to do things by themselves and to act faster.
Yeah, I can imagine. Thank you. And then if we talk about integration, there's one more question that I want to put out there, and I think that's more for Max. So we're talking about integration. Since the acquisition of Marketo by Adobe, what has happened from an integration perspective with other Adobe products like AEM, for instance?
Yeah, sure. So since the acquisition of Marketo, there's actually been quite a lot that has happened in the past years, or in the past year. And one of them would be, for example, an integration with AEM assets, where you can directly access the assets being made ready by your designs team, for example, in order to then be used by the marketing teams to make you a bit more agile in the way that you would actually execute your marketing campaigns. And on the other side, we've also just recently launched an integration with the entire Adobe Experience Cloud. So you're now also able to push the audiences that you define within Marketo into Adobe Target, Adobe Audience Manager, and real-time CDP as well soon.
All right, pretty cool. Thank you. For now, also for the sake of time, I will end it here. So thank you again for the presenters for telling your story today, Max as well, and everyone who attended today. Also, thank you. It was very nice having you, and keep an eye out on our social channels for the next webcast. Have a good day.